Welcome to the 3 Knockdown Rule. Starring Mario Lopez and Steve Kim. Presented by Hustler Casino and UFC Fight Pass.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 Knockdown Rule on UFC Fight Pass is in effect. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Mario Category 2 Lopez. Not much of a hurricane we got yesterday, to be honest with you.
The hurricane?
Yeah.
We had the hurricane
Both.
and the earthquake. I thought the world was going to end. My gosh. Speaking of Debbie Downers, we got Smoke and Tim Frazier on the ones and twos, and
Tino on the edits. All right, the bout sheet for today. We have a jam-packed show. We're going to talk about heavyweight Saturday, and scheduled to join us on the championship hotline, the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, Terence Bud Crawford, and Mr. Snack/Balco from Hall of Shame of Netflix, Victor Conte joins us, and then we also have some final flurries. But I want to let everyone know that this show is brought to you by the Hustler Casino. It's our favorite LA, Los Angeles casino, and home of the most popular poker live stream in the world, a Southern California staple since the year 2000.
Also, shout out to our sponsor and neighbor right here in Hollywood, Scout Micro LA. They offer a unique and innovative hair loss solution for men. They do a thing called pigmentation SMP, basically restoring the exact shape and size of hair follicles by tattooing tiny particles of pigment into the scalp, giving the illusion of hair. You'll never have to worry about losing it again. You can see results as little as one treatment and create and restore a hairline, make your hair look thicker and denser. It can also conceal scars, hair trans issues if you've got any camouflage burns or what have you. It uses the highest qualities. It's really top-notch stuff. If you're going bald, looking for a new look this summer, or just want to thick it up, call our friends over at Scout Micro LA and mention this ad for a free consult.
Hey, because if you're getting thin, he'll help fill you in. All right, so let's get started.
Round 1.
From Warsaw, Poland on ESPN Plus for the IBF, WBA, and WBO heavyweight title of the world, Alexander Usyk takes on Daniel Dubois. Mario, is there any chance? Freddie Roach once said, Steve, you know what puncher's chance means? And I said, what? It means you got to get lucky. But Dubois is a big, burly, natural heavyweight. How much of a shot does he have?
Look, if I had to pick one sport out of every sport, and I hesitate because I'm trying to think of another one other than boxing where one could, quote, get lucky. Get lucky, to me, is when a guy who happens to be heavy-handed, maybe he's well-conditioned. I automatically think of, like, the fight with Castro and John David Jackson, where if it was in the United States, they would have stopped it a long time ago because it took place in Mexico. He came with a big left hook. I put it on the other day on YouTube, and my gosh, that would be considered a, quote, lucky punch. But he was a dangerous guy. John David Jackson extended himself a little bit, and he got caught with that big left hook. Do I think something like that could happen here? No, because I think Usyk is an incredibly disciplined and very intelligent fighter, but you never know. You have a little bit of a lapse, and you get a dangerous guy in front of you. Anything can happen. Usyk, for some reason, was trending the other day with his knockout over Tony Bellew, which I forgot how vicious it was. Usyk, you forget, he's a bad dude. So I expect him to continue to look as solid as he's looked. But again, that's why they fight the fights. We'll see.
Yeah, and if it seems like we haven't seen Usyk in a while, it's only because we haven't. Literally this past weekend is the 1-year anniversary of his rematch with Anthony Joshua. Kind of got bogged down in the Tyson Fury nonsense.
Right, and then there was the war.
There was the war, and that
Nice.
isn't a factor. But here's the thing with Dubois. Big, strong, burly guy, heavy-handed. But, man, I'm still worried. The last time we saw him, he got knocked down 3 times by Kevin Lorena in round number 1. And if he was not the A-side or the house fighter, that thing could have been waved off. And then in his other fight, his eye got beat up, and he had to capitulate, wave the white flag. I'm not saying he quit, but he did get put through the ringer by Joe Joyce. Dubois, in my view, is very dangerous early. There's going to be a window. It's going to be in the first 4 rounds. But if it gets to 5, 6, 7, and 8, the overall IQ and the engine and the durability, I think Usyk comes away with this title. But again, if you're looking ahead to a Fury showdown, these fights in between, the sandwich fights, as they say, are oftentimes the trickiest to navigate. But again, that'll be Saturday afternoon on ESPN+. And then later that night from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Mario, I love the fact that Jared Anderson had some shaky moments against Charles Martin, but this Saturday's coming back against Andrei Rudenko. I love the quick turnaround.
So do I. I was just going to say, he didn't sit around and maybe waste the rest of the year just sort of contemplating and gathering himself. He went right back in there, and for a heavyweight, that's nice to see. For any fighter in this day and age, that's nice to see. So a fun little weekend in what's usually a downtime.
Yeah. It is the dog days of summer. I'll say one thing about Rudenko. Experience, but he has 6 losses. He's 39 years old. He's been stopped. I like what Top Rank's doing. They're saying if you have any doubts about what happened, dark cloud from the Charles Martin fight, psychology matters in matchmaking. Sometimes you have to rebuild the confidence of a young fighter.
Absolutely.
But I love the fact that Jared Anderson, if he gets past this one, there's a shot he could fight again by the end of 2023. So obviously they're moving him very, very quickly. All right, we come back. Scheduled to join us on the championship hotline is Victor Conte on the 3 knockdown rule.
Catch it streaming live right on YouTube.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
$1.2 million.
And I'm losing in this fucking game. What the fuck?
There's a 400K flip. If I win by the way, you get 10 grand.
For my fans.
What? I ran it twice.
Wow. All in a call.
I'm not fucking leaving.
Raise it up.
And we're back now on the 3 knockdown rule on the UFC Fight Pass. Steve Kim, Mario Lopez. And Mario, I'll let you do the intro. We have a very special guest on the championship hotline.
You know what? Honestly, one of my favorite people, fascinating individual, former bass player of Tower of Power and a couple other cool bands. But aside from that, a man who many think is a doctor, but is just a brilliant individual, Mr. Victor Conte, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Starring in the very popular trending documentary Hall of Shame, currently on Netflix. Congratulations, Victor. Prior to that, of course, you were known as the founder of Balco and also of SNAC, both of which are acronyms for Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative and Scientific Nutrition for Advanced Conditioning. You come up with the coolest acronyms that are catchy. Did you like the documentary? Did you feel it was a fair portrayal?
Well, that's not the documentary that I signed up to make, but based upon the response, I like that. So, shout out to the Netflix people for apparently they knew what they were doing. That particular series, as you might have noticed, is kind of more sinister. The Problem Child. It's about, attempted suicide. It's apparently people like the dark side stuff. So I wanted to include a little more about boxing, what I call Act 3, and some of the anti-doping movement stuff, and talk a little bit about VADA and so on. But we didn't get much of a chance to do that.
I told Cam, I said, because he knows how I feel about you, I said, I feel Victor came off like a very likable Bond villain, if that makes sense.
Well, let me tell you something that's funny. When you listen to the beginning of the film, if you go back and listen carefully, you hear bum, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And I said, what's this music, right?
Yeah.
And I said, that's the theme for Pink Panther. So remember the comedy? Of course. You guys are old enough. You should remember that.
I remember.
So I went back. If you remember, there was a bumbling, inept investigator.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
In this film, that role is played by Jeff Nowitzki. And then there's the master thief who he's trying to catch. And of course, he makes all sorts of mistakes and trips over his shoestrings and so on. And it's pretty funny. And maybe it's just me, but I thought maybe there was some kind of connection there between the guy that wrote the music for the documentary and the Pink Panther theme.
You know what I found really fascinating, and I actually knew this, but it reminded me, because when we had met initially, I always used to call you Dr. Conte. Dr. Conte this, Dr. Conte. And then one time you told me, goes, Mario, that's very nice, but I'm not a doctor. And I just assumed, because you take a person's blood, you read the test results, and you're obviously a highly intelligent individual, and you're dealing in this world of chemistry, that you would have to be a doctor. How did you become so knowledgeable in this particular space? being a musician and then not being your background. That's like fascinating to me. You became the go-to guy. It's so weird.
How this all happened was a friend of my cousin's owned a laboratory that was originally in Santa Barbara. And they have this technology, an ICP, which stands for inductively coupled plasma, and it's an atomic emission spectrometer. Took me years to be able to even pronounce it correctly. But then I literally ran an ad in the Yellow Pages for a medical director for the laboratory that we were building. And he took me to Stanford University to the Lane Medical Library and helped me get a library card. And then I started going there and crawling around on my hands and knees 60, 70 hours a week, Xeroxing all these scientific journals to learn about the effect of minerals and trace elements. And what people may or may not realize is all the hormones and enzymes in your body are dependent upon an adequate supply of minerals and trace elements. So if you don't have those, your testosterone will drop, growth hormone levels will drop, et cetera. So I began to see and start studying about, and a lot of the research was the Department of Military Medicine, like SEAL trainees, and they would determine that on a train day, and they looked at all the not only physiological stressors but psychological stressors. And on a train day compared to a rest day, you would find double the concentration of these micronutrients in urine. So I realized elite athletes, the way they train and how much they sweat and so on, that I bet you a lot of these guys have depletions and deficiencies in minerals and trace elements.
Well, speaking of which, that's what you began doing, is doing diagnostics on athletes. Now, do you believe the title was interesting? Because as soon as you came up and you said to me, Steve, this is what they're calling it, Hall of Shame, I said, oh, okay, they're going to go this direction. Like, you kind of knew. Do you think the documentary at least cleared up the perception that still exists, that Balco just sprouted up in 1998 and was giving out illegal PEDs? Because the history is that it began in 1984. You guys were a very clean operation for about 15 years.
Sure.
Do you think it at least did that?
I think that it did, yes. The people, and that's why I was so against that title in the beginning, because I felt like it was going to broad stroke all those athletes from back in the 80s, and Super Bowl championship teams and big names like John Elway and Dan Marino and Steve Atwater and Bill Romanowski. And of course, Bill a little later did go down the slippery slope with me, but many athletes that I worked with over that 16-year period, I never gave them any performance enhancing drugs. And I thought that's what they were doing, was they were going to broad stroke everybody. And I felt bad for those that I had worked with over the years.
Mario, when you go up to the SNAC facilities, okay, I've been there a few times, the pictures of every athlete is on the walls. Like, he lists them proudly. It doesn't matter. And that's the question that I have is, Victor, you've never ran from your past. Why is that?
Because you can't run from your past. It is who it is. When you got to realize that from 2003 until 2013, over that decade, my friend Terry Thompson, that was the sports editor of the New York Daily News, told me that they ran a search and determined that over 300 feature stories about me and Balco have been written in the New York Daily News. This was a Balco boss, Balco investigator, Balco athlete, Balco lawyers. Everything was Balco, 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 Balco. And that name, as you know, the title of articles is what, and people kind of got into this like a long-running soap opera, I guess. So as soon as I saw that headline, of course, they'd want to read it.
And if you watch the doc, you put it out there. You say, I never gave anyone any steroids. You said, which I found fascinating, because I think the perception is, like, just like you said, that Balco was set up, and that's specifically what you did. But you say you didn't, and yet you attracted these high-level stars, these athletes from different sports, from the Barry Bonds to the Marion Jones and what have you. And so you gave them their blood work, you told them where their deficiencies are, and then they took that information and did with it what would someone who does do in that. I'm speculating. I don't know. Is that
you're correct? And if you notice at one point in the film when I said, now I had to learn how to formulate supplements, and the reason was because I would tell people what they were low in, and let's just say it was a half a dozen different minerals and trace elements. Some they would take in the morning, some in the afternoon, some in the evening, because you can't take them together because they have competitive and antagonistic interactions.
Right.
What I quickly learned was the industry standard was to put calcium, a form of calcium, dicalcium sulfate, inside as a filler. And you'd go to GNC and buy iron, 18 milligram, or zinc, 15 milligram, and the other 985 milligrams was calcium. Well, then I learned that calcium significantly inhibits the absorption of all the other minerals and trace elements by as much as 50%. So I tested everybody, told them to go buy this stuff and at a health food store at GNC, retest them in 6 weeks, and the blood values weren't changing. I had to figure out why. So then I took the calcium out and put in other inert things and started getting the most bioavailable forms. And so I couldn't test people, tell them what to do, and have them come back in 6 weeks and say, well, why do my blood results look exactly the same? It's because the products on the market were doing nothing more than giving you the most expensive urine in the world.
So you weren't necessarily giving the steroids, you were giving them for them not to appear later, essentially, right?
No, I was trying to replete their body stores. So we developed what you would call an individualized program. Genetically, many other factors would cause you to be high or low. Certain people absorb, Steve might absorb 40% of magnesium and you might absorb 20. There's a lot of factors that go into that, psychological, physiological, genetically, and so on. So wherever you started, my analogy would be, and this is how I describe to the boxers, that we're plugging you into the auto diagnostic machine, okay? And we find you got X amount of horsepower, but look at this. You got a little low compression in this cylinder. Let's fix that. You got a little low vacuum over here. If you're a little more rich or lean over here in the fuel, and we make these adjustments to maximize the horsepower. But how do you know what you need and how much to take unless you do this diagnostic in the beginning? So that's the very first step with everybody is comprehensive blood testing. And we do at least 50 different parameters. So it's very comprehensive. All the anabolic hormones, the immune system, red blood cells, white blood cells, overtraining markers, etc.
Right, and keep this in mind. Patrick Arnold, who was mentioned prominently, came up with the clear and the cream.
Right.
So, and remember, and Victor said this many times, look, I was... What really was the rage in the late 90s was undetectable PEDs.
Right.
To how to beat the test.
And hence the clear and the cream. By the way, you were looking really good right there when you had the shirt off sometimes. Victor,
That's
you were
my
looking.
customer.
Yeah, exactly. You were looking really lean.
And let me correct something you just said, Steve. You said that he came up with the clear and the cream. First of all, there were two versions of the clear. There was just not one clear. Oh. The first one was called norbolethone. That was something that was in the scientific literature. Rife Laboratories made this in the 60s. And then they discontinued making it because they had some liver hepatic issues there, and they never brought it to market. So he just made like a gallon of this stuff, and it was all over the place, NFL, and I mean, craziness, But then once I got a hold of this and I started doing testing on it, I realized that the dosage needed to be much lower than what I was originally told, and the frequency. And then the cream was something that I came up with because anytime you take any kind of a steroid, it suppresses your own endogenous production of testosterone. And this is why you hear about bodybuilders and their balls are shrinking because they're not producing any testosterone. So the testers are looking for this. So the actual way the program was structured, Monday the clear, Tuesday the cream, because you'd suppressed your own endogenous production of testosterone, we bring it back up to normal. Wednesday the clear, Thursday the cream, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. So it was a 4 days on, 3 days off, and then 3 weeks on, and then 1 week off. This was specifically to lessen any potential side effects. And of course, I was also testing liver function, cholesterol fractions, all these for health and safety purposes. You don't think I knew that if somebody was harmed, that their blood wouldn't be on my hands? So this whole idea that I was reckless, dangerous, all this kind of stuff, trust me, anybody that was using stuff when I started, they were using it before I started working with them.
No,
Okay. So instead of buying it out of the dark alleys and out of trunks of cars and gyms, they were now bringing it under all the lights of a clinical laboratory and we were doing it as safe as we possibly could. Now, were there risks involved? Of course.
Well, that's what my question was right here. Let's eliminate sport for a second, just for purposes of a conversation. If a guy like Kim, who doesn't do any physical activity, when a guy just wants to hang out, say he just wants to look better, right? Just your average guy just wants to look physically strong and wants to appear more confident and just have bigger muscles and what have you. How dangerous really is these anabolic steroids? Aren't they be kind of
listen, there are guys that say, show me the dead bodies. There's really no acute here and now dynamic. Steroids are not like EPO can thicken your blood. You can have a stroke and die. Okay, there are things that are very dangerous, but steroids, and I classify them in two ways: use and abuse. Okay. So normally, where a guy might take, a couple hundred milligrams every other week of testosterone, and to put that in perspective, on average, a male generates 50 milligrams a week or 7 milligrams a day. So this is how, and we'll move on to this issue of testing in the 4-to-1 ratio. You can take triple your circulating testosterone level and still be flying under the radar of the 4-to-1 TE ratio. So this is how, when what's going on today is that there are no more clear. Have you heard any more designer steroids lately? The answer is no. And the reason is because anabolic steroids are so easy to detect, and they've developed methods that literally double and triple the length of time. It used to clear in a few days. Now orals will maybe clear in 4 to 6 weeks, and injectables maybe 3 or 4 months, and some up to a year.
Right. Or I'm not talking about competition. I'm just talking about if the average guy wanted to use them, they're essentially not dangerous. And would you even say good for you?
Well, especially when you get to be my age or even your age. Okay. So how do you know that? If you're tested and your testosterone level is low and you bring it up, say the normal range is 300 to 1100 and average is 550. Okay. Is it going to hurt you to bring it up to like 750? No, the side effects would be virtually non-existent. But a pro bodybuilder, as an example, where you do a couple hundred milligrams, every 2 weeks, they're doing like 5,000 milligrams a week. We tested a pro bodybuilder one time, and his serum testosterone level was 21,000.
What?
Now, some of these guys, of course, have heart attacks, and so that now I'm talking about abuse.
We're talking about.
I'm not suggesting abuse.
The stigma that it's bad for you, it can kill. It actually could be good for you.
It's like a glass of wine could be good for you. You drink 2 bottles a night, you're an alcoholic under a bridge. Victor,
great analogies, Steve.
Victor, I hope I'm not an example of that. Now, Victor, your overall thoughts on what has taken place with Dillian White and Alicia Baumgardner, and I wrap this up by asking also, how rampant are illegal PEDs in the year 2023 in your view?
Well, relative to when VADA started back in 2011, the beginning of 2012 was the first tests that were done on, if you recall, it was Nonito Donaire, did 24/7, 365 back in 2012. And by the way, he also won Boxing Writers Association Fighter of the Year with 4 wins over Juan Manuel Marquez, who knocked out Manny Pacquiao. So it shows you that a champion can, be clean and do remarkable things in the world of boxing. Now back to say it was 80% before, and maybe it's 60% now. I still think it's a majority. And the reason is because the promoters are not doing adequate testing. And in particular, I'll tell you who the worst are is Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, and Al Heyman and PBC. Now, they may do testing at an event of just the headliner, okay? But other guys on the card, like my fighters, like a Demetrius Andrade, who fought in January on the card in D.C. with Tank, okay? He wasn't tested at all, 0. How do you have a 2-time world champion in a pay-per-view event with 21,000 people there and have 0 testing?
And that's the thing. Opposed to like baseball or even football, I'd say when you're hitting with your fists and the object of the sport is to inflict pain, that's when steroids are that's when, in which I'm sure you would agree, that it becomes dangerous and perhaps even lethal.
Absolutely. And let me talk about the specific cases that you just asked me about, okay? Especially Alicia Baumgarten, there's this recent one. The data is so ridiculous where they do the testing at which they call matchroom drug testing, right? But here's what they're doing. They're hiring this company called Drug Free Sport. Originally, it was IDTM, which is based in Sweden, and now it's in Missouri here in the United States. And they do a lot of testing for baseball, football, NCAA, et cetera. But here's what I learned. The promoter can go to them, and just like a menu in a restaurant, where VADA orders everything on the menu, all prohibited substances at all times. They follow the WADA code, which is no stimulants and no narcotics during training camp. And then apparently in her case, when they do the anabolic steroid panel with VADA, 65 steroids are included. And apparently in her case, there was only 8 included. Now, here's the bizarre part about this. My understanding, let's put it that way, is that a promoter can say, I want to do these little panel of tests here, but not others. And then when the results come back, I don't want anybody to get those results. Just send them to the promoter exclusively. No commission, no sanctioning body. And if the promoter decides to show these results, well, maybe they do and maybe they don't. Okay, so this is highly shady business going on, in my opinion. Now, also, she did a test, which was the 16th of June. Then she did another test the week of the fight, I guess the 12th of July. Then she did a third test, which was at the fight on August the 15th. So it was June 16th, and then the fight was in July. So July 15th and 12th and July 15th. Well, it was a full 30 days later when they came forward with the data, and 2 things that were discovered. First of all, Eddie Hearn had those test results for 5 days before anybody found out. Secondly, the protocol is that you're supposed to ship all samples collected for drug testing overnight. Well, now we know that this sample from the one that tested positive sat in the doping control officer's house for 9 days before they sent it in.
Can't do that.
Now let's say one more thing. This company, if you look online, there have been allegations and in fact a lawsuit, and one of the senior people that worked in the company, she was going to rat them out because there was evidence that somebody within this organization, when a positive drug test came back, offered in exchange for money to cover it up.
Ooh, shady.
Victor, we have to get going because we're waiting. We're going to be talking to Crawford. Last question that we have. What's he like to work with? What do you think of him as an athlete? Where does he rank?
Very special. He's just, he's a great guy. The more you get to know him, the more you like him. I have tremendous respect for him. He's a fun guy, but, a lot of people don't know him, and it took me a while to warm up to him. But I would say the thing that I appreciate the most about Terence is his loyalty.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And then just a question. I'm just curious with about your response. Obviously, there's still steroids in sports in general. I remember one time we had a conversation. You said, Mario, there's always going to be one guy a step ahead that's going to be able to be ahead of the testing and be able to clear it. Is that still the case?
Well, that's the case, but let me just in short tell you what the new doping is about. It's taking your own endogenous hormones. That means testosterone. That means EPO. That means growth hormone. That means insulin. That means thyroid. Your body makes all of these, right? So it's very difficult to differentiate between what is endogenous, produced by your body, and comes from outside. And they have what they call a threshold. So they microdose, as I know you heard about, and if it's a 4-to-1 TE ratio, testosterone to epitestosterone ratio, they'll pull it up to 3-to-1 and just fly under the radar, so to speak.
Wow.
Let me just say one final thing. I could not be more pleased at however this happened to have as a part of the SNAC system team 3 undisputed fighters, Terence Crawford, Devin Haney, and Clarissa Shields.
Bravo. All right,
Bravo.
so Victor, when you're in LA, you got to pay us an in-studio visit. We'd love to have you here.
We've got a lot more to talk
Will do. And listen, congratulations on your continued success. You guys are the big dogs.
All right.
Thank you.
And there it is from
Dr. Conte.
Dr. Snack Attack. Victor, thank you. We'll be back with more of the 3 Knockdown Rule. And we're back on the 3 Knockdown Rule on UFC Fight. And Mario, I don't think this young man needs an introduction, but you know what? I'm going to have you do it anyway.
Oh, man, I'm very excited to finally be able to talk to the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, Mr. Terence Bud Crawford. Welcome to the show, my man. Yes.
What's going on? What's going on?
Hey, man, first of all, of course, congratulations, but I'm so happy to see you finally get your flowers, as the kids say, and do this big victory lap. I've been seeing you on the show, and, man, I saw you on Charlemagne talking about Charlemagne. Got to know a little bit more about the game before he starts talking to you and all that. But I've been seeing you do a lot of different shows that obviously you haven't had the opportunity to do before, and it's great when fighters of your caliber and Errol Spence finally step into that ring and make it happen. But it took a minute. Did you ever give up on facing Errol Spence in years past? Like you said, this shit's just taking too long.
Yeah, I gave up a little bit, but, you know, I circled back and once I left Top Rank and see if we could get a fight between me and Errol Spence align with each other. The talks started off good, but then it went bad once we started talking about the terms and stuff like that, you know, transparency. And at that point in time, I decided to take the Avanesian fight. And after that fight, I just was like, okay, let me circle back and see, you know, if this fight really can be made or not.
Terence, I remember last October of 2022, a press release came out at about 8 o'clock at night, which never happens. It says, Terence Crawford, David Avanesi. And I said, oh, okay. And it says BLAK Prime. And I was like, wait, what?
BLK.
Okay, right. And I remember you did a live stream that night kind of explaining your position. In your view, what were the chances or the percentages of the Spence fight happening next? I mean, were you encouraged or were you kind of skeptical that this fight would ever happen at that point with you and Errol?
Well, at that time, I was kind of, you know, having mixed emotions because I already said, you know, certain things I wasn't going to bend on, and I know certain things they wasn't going to bend on. And at that time, I was like, well, maybe the fight's not going to happen. But once me and Errol Spence got on the phone and we both explained to each other how much we wanted to fight each other and make history, then that's when I got the confidence that the fight will happen next.
Well, the build-up, the heated pre-fight press conference, Derek James disrespecting your trainer, Bo Mack. I'm sure you're...
You see what happened, though, right?
Pardon me?
You see what happened, though, right?
That's exactly it.
Derek James, you know, he did a lot of disrespecting my coach. The media was disrespecting my coach. The fans, they was disrespecting my coach. But, you know, he showed high-level coaching the night of the fight, and I don't think Derek James was on his level when it's all done. When you compare the two, I believe that they didn't have a backup plan. I believe him telling his fighter to step around, and that's all he was telling them. That was bad coaching for that night. Not to say that Derrick James is a bad coach at all, because I wouldn't disrespect him by saying that, because he's a great coach. He's done great things in the sport of boxing, but that night he got out coached.
That's a classy way to put it. And speaking of that night, Bud, did the fight play out how you envisioned?
No, not at all. I thought it was going to be a harder fight. I thought, I trained for the fight to be a tough one. Not saying that it was easy, because I think all the fights is won in the gym. When you get to this high level, everything is about inches. And once you get to this level, no fights is easy. But I thought the fight was going to be more difficult. But once I got in there and I see what Errol Spence was bringing to the table, I knew in my heart that, I had it in the bag.
Terence, I want to talk about a couple of days before the fight. I thought throughout the whole week you were the alpha. I mean, you set a tone. And I remember watching the press conference where you basically told everyone on both sides, like, hey, let's calm down. This is about me and two guys. Let's not act up here. But then someone got on your nerve on Spence's side, and you basically said, hey, don't do it. Don't do this. You got kind of heated at the guy. And I think everyone was like, oh, you mean business. Did you feel in your own mind it was getting almost too tense on both sides from people that had nothing to do with the fight on that particular day?
Well, it's been that way. When you look at the buildup, when you look at the hype around the fight, when you look at both sides of the fans for each fighter, it's been, that way, especially when you got two high prize black fighters in the urban area. You got to pick a side. So you have fans from his fans, tweeting and saying all kinds of crazy stuff to me. You got people from my fans tweeting and saying crazy stuff about him, and they made it more personal with the fight, surrounding the fight, than me and Errol did. Me and Errol is two professionals, and we just want to be great. We just want to, be recognized as the best fighter in the world. We have the same goals, but the fighter's going to fight the fight. The fans wanted to fight the fight, be fans, be businessmen. They want to be lawyers. They want to be promoters. They want to be all of it in one. And I think, that's what made the fight more intriguing, because of how it separated us as, I would say, brothers, because we both black.
Yeah, Terence, what's interesting is I know you're on Twitter, but you don't tweet a lot. And I still recall your sister TT, she's come back. She doesn't back down from anybody. She got right into the mix. How much of that slander, because I thought some of it did get slanderous and some outright lies from the other side. How much did you actually see of that? And did it ever really reach a point where it made you angry?
No, I've been getting lied on and all kinds of crazy stuff my whole career, damn near. So that's nothing that surprised me. It's just that, when I fought Avanesian, that was my time to tell my side of the story, because normally I just let fans and the naysayers say what they want because it don't affect me. So I just let them talk. But it comes a point in time where you got to stand up for yourself, and you got to say, look, this is not true. This is not true. This is what was really going on, and this is what happened, and this is why the fight didn't fall through. And at that point in time, people still saying I was lying, I was ducking, I was asking for too much, I was this, I was that. And I just said, okay, cool. I said what I said. I made my peace. Now there's nothing for me else, nothing left for me to say. At that time, you got to just say to yourself, it doesn't matter what you do. They're going to believe what they want. They're going to take it how they're going to take it. And that's just how it's going to be.
You're right. And I feel like you're the type of man too, that doesn't get flustered too easily or intimidated. So you're going to do what you're going to do. Will the rematch clause be enforced, Bud, or what's the latest on all that?
I don't know. That's something that Errol got to discuss with his team, and they the one that got to make the decision whether, or not to go into a rematch by the end of this year or not.
And Bud, my understanding is since you were the winner, if Errol says, okay, we're doing the rematch, you get the decision on the weight class. Tell me if that's correct. And would you have a problem with the second fight being at 154?
Yeah, that is correct. I'm in charge now. The ball's in my court. I'm the point guard, so I'm able to do whatever I want to do at this point in time, at whatever weight.
And I'm sure at this point in time too, Bud, you're going to be very selective on the fights you want to make, and you want to make the big money fights and the fights that turn into big events and what have you. And I know on other shows, people be not knowing the fight game, talk about you jumping up 2-3 weight classes. Would there be any consideration? I know Canelo was a name that was popped out there. Would you ever even entertain going? Because I don't think that he's a thick little dude. I don't think he can go much lower. Would you ever consider going up to 68, or is that just kind of ridiculous? As I say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous? I meant what I said.
That's 20 pounds.
Listen. That would be my opportunity to show everybody how great Terence Crawford really is. If Canelo win that fight and accept my challenge, and I come up to 168 and challenge him for undisputed in his weight, and that fight happened, then man, I'm gonna just show everybody, that skills pay the bills, and I got the skills to do it all in that ring.
Mario, I'm gonna tell you right now.
What about that life?
No, if Bud beats Canelo, you better move someone off your Mount Rushmore.
Oh, you
better get a new sculptor.
You already know how I feel about Bud. For years, man, I've been a big fan. Aside from your skill set, I love the way you carry yourself and with your family.
I can't say the same for Steve. Steve used to be a big hater.
No. You know what's funny, Terrence? I actually have probably stuck up for you more than anybody. But Terrence, you know what's funny?
God knows I've been a big fan for a long time.
Definitely.
And real quick, aside from him as a fighter, I love the way he is with his family. I want to get to the kids and all that in a second. I've actually had him on my show. But real quick, Bud, strong work ethic. Never see you out of shape. Obviously fundamentally sound, best switch hitter, ambidextrous fighter I've seen, and damn it, I love that mean spirit to close that show right there. Do you, when you're not fighting and you have a fight lined up, obviously you stay in shape, but do you make it a point to stay out of the boxing gym, or you just do other things to keep you in shape?
Well, I do other things. I played basketball today with my nephew, but I still went to the gym. I didn't work out, but just my presence, motivate those kids in the gym. So, I'm constantly doing things. I'm constantly, trying to stay active. So if I'm not in the boxing gym training, I'm still getting a workout in.
Did you, and I know your boys wrestled, which I love because mine do too. Did you wrestle growing up, Bud? And I saw you messing around on some video with someone. I was like, you did a nice little sprawl, had a nice little shot. And then I know you were in Nebraska. You got them corn-fed boys wrestling all the time. How much was wrestling a part of your life?
Well, I didn't like wrestling. I wrestled. I quit in the 7th grade, but I never really liked the wrestling, because I grew up where there was a lot of studs. The guys that I was wrestling with, all of them was going to college. They all was, 3-time state champions, so it was real tough, and at that time I was still boxing. I still had that anger problem. So getting took down and getting pinned and stuff like that. Not say I wasn't, handling my own, but, wrestling is a tough sport and it get competitive. and it get intense. And I always ended up wanting to throw blows. I always wanted to fight, so it was just
MMA.
like
MMA.
yeah.
But it's ironic because you got your boys into it.
Yeah, because I know how great wrestling is for just life purposes.
Yeah,
you know, just having the foundation to do any sport. I think wrestling go hand in hand with any sport because you learn your body so much in wrestling that you can't do in other sports. Wrestling and gymnastics, I think, is the two most the two best sports you can do to actually learn your body and learn balance and learn how to control your upper body and your lower body together. So and it makes you strong as shit at that. So I put my kids in it at a young age, at the age of 3, because I always said you're gonna be able to protect yourself whether you want to or not. Because 9 times out of 10, if you get into a fight on the streets, it's going to end up on the ground. So got to get that ground game first.
And they're good too. No, because I follow them and they're good too. And I saw that, and it was very, very impressive. And it's so nice to hear you say that because I thought the same thing. You can wrestle, you can do anything, you can acclimate to try to do anything else, and not to mention the confidence. And your little girl, is she still running track? I had her on the show. I don't know if you know this, Tim. The shoe, Kim, the shoe came off. She's still running. Remember that, Terence? In fact, that was wild.
The reality is there is no Marcus the Queensberry rules. There really isn't. Terence, I want to go a fight real fast. One of the great moments of that night, you knocked down Errol Spence, and you had the wherewithal to actually point out Jermell Charlo. Did you? He was sitting. I've never seen that before. Or did you just happen to see him when you went to the neutral corner?
No, actually, when I came in the ring, me and Charlo locked eyes. I was coming up the ropes. I jumped in the ring. I always look around to see where my family is sitting. So as I come in the ring, me and Charlo lock eyes, and I just turn like, man, I'm not worried about him, and I locked eyes with my family. And you just see him like over there like this with his head tilted. The first knockdown, I didn't say nothing to him, but as the fight keep going and, emotions start flaring up and I'm getting more confidence. Once I knocked Spence down again, I was just letting Charlo know, like just telling him about himself.
Did you ever get along with them? Because there always seemed to be a little tension with you and the Charlos. Was that Errol Spence?
No, we used to be cool. I had their number. They had my number. They used to inbox me on Instagram. We used to talk about cars. I was cool with they big brother, all that stuff. I see them at the store, like, like the designer stores and stuff like that. And it was all love, But once I moved up in weight and it got to a point where I was challenging Spence and my name was in the same category as Spence, Jermell was like, oh, we Lions over here, we Texas boys, he gonna get knocked out, man, fuck that, fuck Crawford, this and that and that. And then, like, I'm like, damn, you know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, you're a whole groupie. So that's where me and the tension got between him, because I felt as a real man, you let 2 men handle what they need to handle and you stay out of it if you cool with both of them. Errol Spence can be your brother. I don't agree with you riding with your brother, but just stay out of it and just play it cool. Like, shit, man. Terence, I respect him. You know what I mean? Me and Terence is friends. We cool or whatever we was. But I'm riding with Errol, and I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna watch them 2 fight and may the best man win. But for you to put in your extra inputs and we Texas boy, we fucking you up and this and that, Errol Spence gonna stop you. Now you disrespecting me. You know what I mean? So now I feel like, you was a fake friend, because now you smiled in my face, but now that I'm trying to fight one of your friends, now you showing the true colors. And Jamal, he never was really out there like that, bad mouthing me and saying crazy stuff about my name until I'll start, talking about his brother. And, he got to take his brother's side because that's his twin. And he just came out and was like, I'll fight Terence Crawford. He don't got to fight my brother. I'll fight him. But he still didn't say nothing crazy or get crazy like Jermell did. So that's my issue with Jermell.
I ain't gonna lie, I'd like to see that fight.
54.
Yeah,
54.
that'd be a lot of fun right there. I know you got some options, my man. What was it like, Bud, having a parade in your honor in Omaha?
Oh that was fucking crazy. I think I was more excited about the parade than the fight. You know, the fight, I was just so locked in. It was just like, I felt like Terminator, you know. But the parade for like 20,000 people to come down there and see me,
Great.
you know, it was unbelievable. It was something that I never been a part of, because when you look at a fight with me and Spence, you got everybody there for both of y'all. You got half for you, you got half for Spence. But when you have your own parade, like everyone's there just for you. Yep. Nobody else. Everybody there just for you and to support your accomplishments, and for them to recognize me as an ambassador for Omaha, Nebraska, and sell me some land for $1. To acknowledge my team. It was big, especially for us coming from where we came from. Nothing was ever given. We had to get everything from ground up. And I just I'm happy that everybody could be a part of it. I'm happy that the turnout about it, like the whole day from start to finish, was amazing. And I'm just blessed to be the one to do it.
Storybook.
You talk about ground up. I don't know if you remember this, Terence, but I actually covered one of your early fights. You were in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Halloween night 2009. Me and Sergio Mora were the announcers. People forget about this. Before Top Rank, Terence was with TKO Promotions. No one remembers that. They actually had some talented young guys like Leo Santa Cruz, and obviously, Terence, have you thought about how far you've come? Because when I'm preparing for this interview and I'm looking at this record of yours, I'm thinking, man, Terence was on TKO Promotions at the War Memorial Arena, and now he's one of the biggest stars in the game doing CBS morning radio. Have you actually had time to exhale and just think about where you are now?
Yes. That's why I always tell people, nothing was given to me. I had to work my way up from the ground, and I wasn't a person that had backing like a big promotional company that was backing me. I never had big money that was backing me. I never was the fighter that was on ESPN, Friday Night Fights, or all these Showtime fights or the new generations. I never had the opportunity to fight on any of those platforms. So I never was groomed. I went straight from fighting a 6-round fight to fighting a 10-round fight in the co-main event. Yes. Prescott. So it was, I think I had like 10 4-rounders because nobody would fight me, and I just needed some money. I think, it was a point of time in 2 years I fought 4 times. That's when I met Tim Bradley, because I wasn't fighting, and I took up the opportunity to go out there and spar him. So my career been rocky from the start. So for me to get where my ultimate goal was, to get to the top of boxing and become a world champion, that was my ultimate goal. But to accomplish everything after it, is beautiful, and it's just telling that anything is possible if you stay focused and stay locked in, and stay true to yourself and your team. Anything is possible.
Absolutely. Last question for me, my man. Obviously, you've been doing this most of your life now, in your 30s, mid 30s, and you've always kept yourself in great shape and haven't suffered too much wear and tear. At least you don't appear to be. I know you've always said you don't want boxing to retire. You want to retire from boxing. How much longer would you like to stay in the game and be competitive here?
Not much longer at all. I don't know. Right now, I'm still wishy-washy. I don't know where my career is going. I for sure want the Canelo fight. I for sure want the Charlo fight. but I got obligations with the Spence fight as well. That's another fight that's intriguing. But outside of those 3 opponents, there's nothing for me to do in the sport of boxing anymore. So my sight is on, the big fights. I believe if Canelo beats Charlo, that's the next fight to be made. If me and Spence not the next one, I think that's the next fight to be made. And then after that, then me and Spence can fight, and I can, ride off in the sunset. Because I don't see how big of a fight with Charlo and Crawford will be coming off a loss. I never fought an opponent coming off a loss. If you look at all my career, I never fought an opponent coming off a loss because, it wouldn't be as meaningful to me or my career to be somebody that just lost. So then that opens the door for the media and people to say, oh, well, he just lost. So, you beating damaged goods, or he was just fighting for the money, So if Jamel win, then of course, me and him, we can get in the ring. I can move up to 68 and fight him because he's going to lose a title at 154 to Tim Tszyu once the bell ring. I think it's bullshit. I think he should be allowed to move up and fight Canelo and still keep all his belts.
Agree.
Because Canelo moved up and fought guys and still was able to keep his belts. But I don't know what the situation is with that. That's not none of my business, but I'm just speaking from the outside, and I don't think it's right. But at the same time, rules is rules, and if they do decide to take his belt when he fight Canelo, then I will be open to challenge the winner.
All right, well, there you have it, Terence Crawford. Terence, first of all, congratulations on all your success. If you're ever in L.A., drop by. You have an open invite with
Man, please come by. I won't sit you next to Kim's ass. Just kick it with me.
Don't listen to this guy.
Kick it with me.
I'm going to kick Steve Kim ass. Can we spar?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Hey, Terence, I want to spar with you.
Steve, you know.
Hey, I'm going to beat his ass for you right now.
No. I do it him, then you. But anyway, Terence, keep in touch, and we'll see you soon. Best of luck in your future, okay?
I appreciate both of y'all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for taking the time. See you, champ.
All right, and that was the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, a serious man. Just a serious man.
He'll beat your ass, kid.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
I love it.
All right. Anyway, this is the 3 knockdown rule. We want to make one couple of announcements here before we get going. If you'd like to get involved with the 3 knockdown rule and sponsor our fine program, we still have some slots available. Please reach out to us by emailing info@boxbid.io. Once again, that's info@boxbid.io. Boxbid.io is an online platform that is launching soon that helps public figures and professionals in the world of boxing get sponsorships. We are proudly working with boxbid.io. Mario, real quickly, final flurries, couple of things here. That wasn't exactly Hurricane Andrew in a Category 5 we had in Southern California on Sunday.
If you paid attention to social media, you would think that it was the end of the world with a hurricane and an earthquake.
I saw arcs being built.
Basically, yeah, you know what? I was on the road coming from Orange County. Then I had to drive all the way back to Bellflower. For people listening, that's about an hour and 15. Then I had another 45-minute drive. Some of the best driving I've had in LA. Freeways were cleared because everyone was scared. Everyone was evacuated. And then it was just a light drizzle. The only down or drawback, I should say, is that I had lost power at my house.
For how long?
The whole day into the night.
And
it affects the hot water. So I had to take a cold ass shower.
Oh, poor guy.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I got little kids. I got little kids. They don't like that too much. And forget cooking. So it was a mess, man. And so now, generator priority number one.
Then we had the little earthquake, little rocking and rolling.
I think I would have took the earthquake all day for some hot water.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch my documentary, the stuff we wanted to watch and all that. I had to try to crash, but overall, everyone's safe, everyone's fine, and it was much ado about nothing, to be honest.
I don't disagree with you. And UFC, Sean O'Malley.
Sean's a champion now.
Whoa.
He caught Aljamain Sterling with a nice counter shot when he overextended himself. Why wrestlers don't wrestle and they try to be something they're not?
I don't understand. Stick with what got you there. I think people get a little confident because you're a little heavy-handed and or a lot of them have heavy hands, and you've had some success in the past. But when you're going up against a guy who's more known for striking, I would have played that a little bit different. But you know what? He was a class act in defeat. Aljo made me even a bigger fan.
And
the way
I can't wait for Sugar Sean O'Malley against Ryan Garcia.
That's the thing. A lot of these UFC guys will start calling out boxers, the ones that can actually throw. And look, I don't know if I blame him. McGregor and Mayweather did some big business, so we'll see. But yes, Ryan did engage and all that.
And we want to thank our special. What a star-studded lineup we had today.
That was fun, man. We could have talked to each of them about an hour each, but that was a little teaser. Maybe we'll talk to them again.
That's what we do. So we want to thank Victor Conte.
Yes.
And we want to thank the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, Terence Bud Crawford.
He said I have to beat your ass for him, just so you know. So I'm only just as a friend.
You would do that without being asked. Let's be honest about it.
True.
All right. Anyway,
That's
on
true.
behalf of Mario Lopez, Smoking Tim Frazier, and Tino on the edits. Till the next round, goodbye, everybody.